Hello and welcome. I'm Darren, and today we are back in The Last of Us Part 2 again. I didn't really want to be, but I am. I've just been doing some stuff with my setup and getting it all sorted out, so I don't have a lot of time today. So this is probably alright because it's a video that didn't take me long to do, and I needed to start up both systems and check everything was running good and that I could do some content and everything looks good and is working fine. So I put up a couple of the Last of Us videos the other day. Someone in the comments commented about, which is fair, it's a fair point, about doing kind of still images doesn't really tell the full picture of upscalers, which, like I said, is a fair comment. I always think other people kind of do a lot of other stuff anyway, and I'm not really the best at trying to kind of sort this stuff out, but I thought I'd make an effort. So yeah, I'm doing a quick motion video. I think this person mentioned that there was a lot of smearing, and I can't remember what it was. Let me just have a quick look. Smearing, yeah, okay. DLSS has significantly worse smearing, or DLSS4 does. I'm going to be honest, I don't really see it. It might be. If it is, it's not something that I notice. It's certainly not something that I notice when I'm playing the game. The smearing that I have seen before in Cyberpunk was, I believe, was more down to ray reconstruction, but I could be wrong. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't think that this is the best. I think this game is probably the worst version of DLSS3 I've seen, which doesn't surprise me because the one prior to this probably had one of the worst versions of DLSS I've ever seen, with like horrendous ghosting and all sorts of stuff. So I never really expected this. I'm always actually surprised to see a Sony game if it actually has a good version of DLSS, and I don't think this is the best version that I've seen of DLSS4, but at the same time I don't think it's fine. FSR4 in this game looks very good. I have no issues with that either. So we've got a quick, I'll let it run. I'm definitely still getting better performance on the 9070 XT. 9070 XT is a beast. So we'll kind of have a quick, I've only done kind of a short kind of little ride along on the old nag in this area. I don't think DLSS4 looks very sharp and clean. I don't think it's the most stable I've seen from a DLSS, but it's not bad. I mean, TAA isn't particularly stable. Do you know what I mean? It's not the most stable I've seen DLSS, but it's probably still as stable as anything else is going to be in this video, if you know what I mean. Probably the worst place that I've seen. And I'm putting it down to DLSS is showing a lot more fine detail, but you can kind of see when you get to the end here, like the reeds by the water are flickering quite a bit. I'm going to put that down to DLSS now is trying, or DLSS4 is trying to show up such fine detail that because it's so fine, it does struggle in certain situations. Whereas before, obviously when you have a fine detail and you kind of blur it out, then you don't get that kind of situation happening. So I'm going to probably put it down to that. I'd probably say, well, we'll go for it. The one worst thing I have seen in this is probably with FSR4, and it's not me having a go. I kind of noticed it there on the bonnet of that car. That does happen with DLSS4. But I did do a side-by-side, so we can look at the side-by-side. I thought I'd just let this run. Like I said, I'm not really seeing... I don't know. Maybe it's just something that I don't notice. It's not like I'm trying to cover it up, or I don't care. I don't have ownership of these upscalers. Do you know what I mean? I'm happy to use either one of them. I've been using upscalers long before DLSS4 and FSR4 came along. So probably the one thing that I did notice, and I went back to look before, is the back of that truck. So the back of the truck in front of us has got some serious artifacting going on. And that's probably the worst thing that I've seen. I wondered if it was just because I'd loaded in the game and it was just random, but at the end of this run I did kind of turn around. I extended this run a bit to turn around, go back and just double check and see if it was still doing it again, and it was still doing it again. And there are kind of a few little bits like that here and there. When we come back, we'll notice that, admittedly, I didn't see the back. I don't know if the back of the lines on the back of those, I take it, kind of slide down back vans. I don't know what those were like. We'll have a look at it when we do the side-by-sides. So I think FSR4, because it's not as detailed down by the water, you can see it's flickering, but I don't think it's as bad as what DLSS4 was on those reeds down at the edge of the water. So when we do the side-by-side, we'll go back and I'll pause it there, and it's probably a little bit more obvious why it probably is that's happening worse on DLSS4, because there's a lot more detail there, or finer detail then. The one thing that I did notice is you see this car, like this car here, the bonnet does something a little bit funny. It does it with FSR4 and it does it with DLSS4 when you kind of get close to it. So they both have a little bit of something going on there. There's probably more going on that I'm not really noticing much more of. I did take a little bit of a different detour and I did get stuck on the horse. So we kind of end up going a bit out of sync because I didn't know the way that I rode the first time, unfortunately, and yeah, we went out of sync. So I just wanted to go back here just to double check, because I'd noticed it straight away on the first run through what was going on the back of that van, obviously here, which is obviously some kind of weird artifacting. I'm not doing any overclocking on this GPU. I'm not doing any like that. You know, sometimes you can get some artifacting if you're doing some sort of memory overclock or anything. I'm not doing any overclock. So, I don't know. Let me know if any of you people have the same issue. So, got a bit of a side-by-side. Definitely, again, I can still see kind of distance. Definitely a sharper, more detailed image on DLSS4. Some bits it kind of stands out a bit more. Where I do notice it when I stop it is in the signs. When we get to the signs, it's quite noticeable then. Like I said, I'm not really seeing. I don't know. I've kind of tried to look for it, but I'm not really seeing any type of smearing or anything. You can see obviously what's going on in the truck on FSR4 is not happening with DLSS4. So again, what that is, I'm not sure. So that's kind of a bit weird. I think the railings are probably, they have movement in either, maybe a little bit more stable in DLSS4. Nothing huge in it. Other than that, I'm not noticing a huge amount. They both look pretty good to me. Probably the first thing that I did notice was that the signs, so you can kind of make out in the signs that the writing is kind of readable at this range on that sign. On this, it's kind of, even like the only, you can barely kind of make out there. And I think I think we're slightly maybe closer in that image. I don't know. Yeah, I think we are probably just slightly closer in that image. So, do you know what I mean? It's like, it's nitpicking. There's not a huge amount in it. You can probably see like the skin details maybe a bit more. It's a bit more kind of blurred on that. Distance things are more, like you can see the trees here look more detailed. There, maybe not so much. It's just little things like that. It's nothing huge. Like I said, if I pause it, I'm not seeing anything showing up in the way of any type of smearing or anything weird going on. Again, like I said, you can see the writing there. For some reason, the O doesn't... It's kind of not really there on that one either, but it's just, yeah, kind of trees out in the distance look a bit more detailed, a bit sharper. Other than that, I don't see anything that great. So yeah, you can probably see, in fact, if anything, the lines in that probably show up a bit more. They're flickering, whereas in this, they're a little bit more... I think maybe just because I'm on a slightly different angle, that might have something to do with it. I did notice when I came through, just looking at it here, you can see again, like the writing here on the cabin is much more readable and a lot more cleaner. It's in motion, a bit more blurry on that one. Again, I'm not notice anything, any type of ghosting or... Horse has got a J stamped on him, look at that. Anything weird going on in either of these. I'm not seeing any kind of the edge here, look very clean. Very clean edge. There's no kind of real ghosting going on there. Maybe a little bit cleaner than actually the edge down her rucksack. I'd probably say that has a sharper, cleaner edge to it. But yeah, kind of the bars on the windows and everything kind of looks okay to me. So when we get to the edge here, this is probably, like I said, the one area. If I pause it, you'll probably see... You can kind of see there's slightly finer details on here than there is there. They kind of blur out a bit more. And certainly out here, you can make out, obviously, all of this detail here. On here, it's just blur. So trees out here look a bit more detailed and a bit finer detailed. Probably up like this tree bark here, it's kind of softened out. Here it's kind of more prominent. Probably on the rocks more detail. So effectively, I think that's probably the finer details. Or maybe, it's not like I'm trying to make an excuse for it. It's a case of I see something and I try to understand what would be the reason for it. So that would be my reason for it. Whether you think it's more annoying or less annoying, I probably think it would actually be better if it... I mean, yeah, you can kind of see there. It's kind of quite apparent how blurred that is compared to there. So... That's kind of, I think FSR4 is probably still doing kind of like, you know, what a TAA does. So it's kind of fine lines that are going to obviously, and DLSS4 would do exactly the same thing. And DLSS4 was criticized for losing detail. Now it's not losing detail. It's criticized again. So do you know what I mean? Somewhere you have to just say, oh, well, it's going to have to be a happy medium. It's never going to be exactly 100% perfect, or maybe it will be 100% perfect once they figure something out. But yeah, you can kind of see it's definitely a little bit more movement there than what there is in there. But there's movement in both. Yeah, like I said, so that's probably about it for me. I'm not really seeing much more other than, like I said, a slightly more sharper image on DLSS4, which keeps a bit more kind of detail. And other than that, probably the kind of the major thing that was kind of stood out. You see, I'd probably say in DLSS4, it might, I don't know, again, I think I was kind of going in from a different angle. No, you probably see it there. So the bonnet does mess around a little bit more in DLSS4 on that, which is being fair. Maybe that grille does a little bit more, but I think on both of them, you see on the roofs of the cars, as you approach the roofs of the cars, there's like a little bit of movement on them. which is interesting. Probably saw there, actually. That was probably a area where, yeah, you see how much detail is on that rock there and how much isn't on that one. So you can probably say FSR4 is doing what DLSS what it used to do, which is kind of anything that would create kind of some instability. It does kind of blur it out a little bit more. But yeah, like I said, probably the kind of outstanding thing, which was, like I said, when I went back to it, was this, which is probably, it's just one of those things, isn't it? I don't know how much this game's going to have like anything like that going on. I might load it and it might not do it again. I don't know. But that was a quick look at it. I'm not going to drag this video any longer. Like I said, I didn't see. Now, I'm not saying that you're not going to see it or someone else will see it. I don't see any kind of smearing or anything around the DLSS4. So maybe I'm missing something. I'm not saying I'm not missing something. Maybe I'm just less prone to picking up on it. There's things that kind of annoy you, and then there's things that you don't really notice much more than that. And it wasn't something, like I said, that I kind of noticed. So when we got to that kind of there. So it did it on FSR4, but not, I think maybe not quite as bad. I think that grill did something a bit more on DLSS4 as well, but I was riding in from a different angle, so that might have been, I'm not making excuses, that might have been a reason, because when you view those type of fine details from different angles, they tend to, I'm impressed with how much detail that holds up though. That's very impressive. This is, by the way, with both of them set to 5 on the sharpness. So just to be clear. Yeah, like I said, none of them, I wouldn't say any of them are like perfectly stable. I could do a run with TAA just to see, but I don't think TAA, from what I saw in the stills, is going to be anything amazing. It's a bit of a weird image, really, because as you're kind of approaching it, it almost looks like it's got some sort of film grain or something going on with it, and that's on both of those. But yeah, you can kind of see that all of the fine details do mess around a bit on both of them. I said that, I think that truck, yeah, because I came in, I rode that way on the other one, and then this one, I don't know, I kind of went in from all different angles all over the place. Yeah, that's right, I was riding in from the other angle on that one, was it? I think it was. Or was it the one after? Oh, I don't know. That must have been, no, it was this one. I think that one I rode in at slides, so you can see it kind of does a bit of a all over the place thing. DLSS does it. Like, though that is such fine lines, I think it's like, is it moire you call it, like when it does that? I don't think there's any way around that. So that's it. Let me know what you think. Like I said, I've got no horse in the race. It doesn't bother me. I'd play with either of those. I think they both look good. So it's no real issue to me. I personally, from what I've seen, I'd still kind of slightly give the edge to DLSS4 just for the detail it holds, and it didn't have that artifacting issue. Like I said, that might just be the one thing in the game. I might load it again and that might not be there, but I can only say what's in front of me. And like I said, it's just those bits like when you're riding into you know, like the where was it? No. Like you can see there how much kind of sharper it stays, which is quite, I think it's quite impressive. it does to me look like it's just a slightly higher definition. But just stuff like with the signs, you know, the sign, you can tell with the signs. And this is all like approaching it in motion. Like here you can kind of see it. These things just look a little bit more blurry. And definitely with like, even there you can see with like the skin on that kind of just looks, there's definitely no, I'm not getting any pores. I haven't found a single pores where I'm seeing any type of smearing or anything happen. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just not prone to seeing it. But yes, it's just one of those things. Like one of them does something slightly better, the other one does something slightly better. I said you can kind of see that it just seems a little bit more stuff missing, whereas here you kind of get more skin grain. We'll go with skin grain. It's not big. It's not a huge thing. Objects back there look that little bit sharper. There they just look a bit more blurred out. Again, it's not a huge thing. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. I'm not going to say something is significantly worse than the other. I think they both look good. So yeah, there again, you can, even at that distance, you can see it just kind of stands out, looking that little bit crisper and that little bit cleaner. Yeah, that's it. I'm going to leave it there. Let me know in the comments. Oh, well, I tell you, that's probably an area where you see it, like this kind of detail here in the top of the concrete. There it's kind of gone. There you've got all of this here. There it's gone. So that's probably quite a good pause to show that off. Like I said, all of the edges all look clean, so I don't think that there's any type of ghosting or smearing. I don't know. There might be every now and then, like randomly. I'm just not catching it, but like I said, let me know. But as far as it goes, that's probably like a good area where you see, yeah, this kind of detail on top of the, I don't know what you'd call it, concrete, tarmac, road stuff. There it's just kind of gone, missing. Again, not a big deal. I'll play with FSR4. Looks good. So I'm not going to make any type of big deal out of that. Maybe up here you can see where this kind of stuff just remains a little bit sharper and a little bit cleaner. There it kind of blurs in a bit. So yeah, let me know in the comments. Oh, and even the windscreen. That's quite a big difference. I might be a bit closer on this one, but I did get caught up. No, in fact, I don't think it. I think even. Let's have a look. So yeah, you've got all of this smashed glass. That hardly shows any of it. So that's quite interesting. Very interesting. Shame I haven't got that one, because that would have been interesting to see. Let me just see. Is it... Do I see that one further out? Yeah, that one shows up alright. It's just that one. And that one. See that going on in that windscreen. That's got nothing. That one shows up. And that one shows up. A little bit more in that one. That one, you can hardly make out any of like the shattered glass, whereas that one is very detailed compared to that. You can see all like these lines in it, and in that one you can hardly see any of them. And like the grill as well shows up, whereas that hardly shows up anything. So again, just little things like that. So let me know what you think. That's it. I'm just making sure. You probably see that rock a bit more. Just making sure that I've covered everything. Whatever I miss, I'm happy for you to point it out. I'll leave it. That doesn't mean that I'm going to kind of obviously agree with what you're trying to tell me, but yeah. Let me know, and I'll catch you in the next one.